I'm Matt Wilhelmi. I'm the owner of Strategic Voyages Business Consultants. I'm also the author of Taboo Business Questions, What's Haunting Every Entrepreneur's Growth. And today I'm joined by Rebecca Schuette. She is a startup veteran with roots in the agency space. She's also the founder and chief marketer at Start to Scale. She's a fractional CMO, all things venture capital and private equity, specifically focused around startups. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm really excited to talk about our case study today.
Yeah, so in our first episode, we spent some time really kind of getting to know each other a little bit, but also unpacking some of the issues that this particular company was facing. And so to refresh our audience of where we're at, in this episode, Rebecca and I are going to present some solutions that really this company could take and embrace, some practical pieces of advice to grow. And what I think more encouraging than anything else is to hear that some of these issues that this organization faces are not actually super unique. They happen all the time. You're in this space, you work with these types of folks all the time, all day. And so you've been there, seen this, done that kind of thing. And so just to recap the issues and really kind of highlight where this company is at. It's a SaaS company that was having a few different issues. You know, I was brought in to help them create an investor deck, but really what I noticed is that they weren't quite ready for that because of some of these issues. And so what you were able to deduce is that they were having some troubles with kind of the life cycle of their client. I phrased it as the salespeople overcoming objections, but then that may be turning into some churn rates down the road. You mentioned that marketing might be just producing the wrong leads, and maybe even marketing's not telling the right story because the leads that are coming in maybe aren't even the right leads to start with. And then finally, one of the issues that we uncovered was that their software was really maybe not producing the right visibility into the process because the reports weren't right, the data wasn't quite there, they weren't measuring the right things. And so please, Rebecca, these are not issues that are totally unique, right? You've seen these types of things before?
Absolutely. It's ripe all over the startup world. Yeah.
And so since we've kind of presented this case study in a way that's able to kind of see the root cause and the root issues here, what do you do from here? How do you guide an organization forward? What advice do you have?
Yeah. So I think what happens a lot of times when you're not hitting those revenue targets is that the finger pointing starts, right? So the best place to dive into that finger pointing, because finger pointing is not particularly helpful. What you want to do is figure out, okay, why? Why do we do this? And the only way you're going to figure out why is if there is some actual cross-departmental communication happening. So first off, I think, as a marketer, I often come into organizations where there is distrust from my sales team. So first off, I want to talk to every single one of the AEs. I want to just learn what they are. So marketing understands market research and market trends, and they can do a great job of coming up with value propositions and key messages. But sales is the mouthpiece delivering all that, which also means that sales is are the boots on the ground that is getting the real life market feedback. So I want to know what sales knows so that I can use that to inform my strategy. And I don't want this just for me to be the central locus of this knowledge. I want this to be team-wide, especially if I'm a fractional CMO. I want to build this culturally. So one of the things I always think that sales and marketing teams should do is that they should have weekly smarketing meetings. It should be, it's a team meeting, and the teams, while they have unique skill sets, they have to complement one another. They can only complement one another if there's communication. So at those weekly smarketing meetings, you should have a unified set of KPIs. So there are so many organizations that I go into where marketing is working on one set of KPIs and it does not align with how the sales team is being commissioned. So that's never going to be a recipe for success. So you want to make sure, okay, if we know our conversion rate of opportunity to revenue is X and we need to drive Y dollars in revenue, well, then I need to know that marketing is going to produce enough opportunities for sales to be able to close that revenue number.
Rebecca, I want to jump in just for a second because first of all, use the word smarketing, which I've not heard before. Is that something that you've patented, or can I use that?
It's been in the startup space. So yeah,
Okay.
It was a few startups ago, actually, was my sales counterpart who we had a wonderful relationship. He was the one who introduced it to me, but I have carried it on since that startup.
I think it makes a ton of sense because that literally gets the sales and the marketing on the same page
Together.
But you mentioned this like set of unified KPIs. I'm just going to go on a limb here and assume that it would be ideal for that to come out of the same piece of software. And
Sure,
so what you're probably seeing though is sometimes marketing has one set of tools and sales has a separate set of tools. And so to get them on the same page with the unified set of data points is really challenging if they're not using the same technology, right?
I mean, some of it's a technology perspective. Some of it is also just like, I'm not actually sure where the failure has been, because often we are unified through, so I'm a Boston girl, HubSpot is my marketing automation tool of choice, but Salesforce tends to be my CRM tool of choice. And sales lives in Salesforce. As a marketer, I also live in Salesforce because there's so much rich data there. It's not always a tool issue. Sometimes it is just an organizational goal setting issue. So that's happened. I think some organizations, they grow so rapidly that the departments become very siloed. And with those silos, you're just not sharing information. So I do believe in a cascading set of KPIs and goals that start at the org level, drill down to the departmental level, and then bubble all the way down to the individual level.
Yeah, I think oftentimes, like I've mentioned, wearing the financial hat, sometimes being the most senior financial person in the room, I sometimes bring up what I think are very obvious pain points, which is, okay, so then who's going to take the data from one software and put it in a spreadsheet, and another person put it in a spreadsheet, and now we just have unlimited numbers of spreadsheets, which makes my it just makes my brain just like go crazy.
Yes.
Don't want more spreadsheets, would love less spreadsheets. Also, these different softwares probably talk to each other. And so I would guess that somebody like yourself, with your background, you mentioned HubSpot and Salesforce is probably the big players in the arena. They have to talk to each other, right? They have to be able to collaborate if you know how. And that's when maybe somebody would hire you. Not that you're a software specialist, but I would imagine that's part of your offering is to like make sure that these things are working.
Absolutely. I mean, the tech stack, in today's marketing world, you have to be an equal part technologist, strategist, and creative person.
Yeah, you sound like a great addition to a team because you're able to kind of see the problem very quickly, diagnose it, and prescribe the right solution. So I'm curious if there are any other kind of key solutions here. You've mentioned, I wrote down some notes, like research and kind of due diligence and making sure that you're checking in with those AEs, that's account executives. And then having these marketing meetings, which is basically kind of bringing the two sides of the house together. What are some other solutions that we're thinking about for this particular company?
Yeah. So first off, in that marketing meeting, so additionally with, coming up with your unified goals and reporting on those goals weekly, there should again be a team-based mentality there. So if we recognize that we are hitting our lead goal, yet we are missing our revenue goal, what can we collectively as a marketing team do to change that forward trajectory? So again, if you can kind of attack it team-based, then you come up with some great and creative solutions, and it feels like you are all working together. There's less of that finger pointing that happens. So that's kind of on this marketing side. The other thing, so we talked about for this particular client that they were having some drop off either with post-sales churn or some drop off kind of early in the funnel. both of those, I think one of the things that I recommend is that can be solved with some customer storytelling. And so again, I think you grow to a certain point, there tends to be silos of knowledge in the organization, and you really need to work to set up the systems and processes to break down those silos and encourage information sharing. So one tactic that we've done in the past is we created just a really easy place, think like a Slack channel, where your onboarding team, your customer success team, and your sales team can post easy customer wins, right? So-and-so customer had this successful thing happen with our software. Doesn't need to be for public consumption. This can be like, this is an internal communication channel, so you don't need to be concerned with, oh, this is, now I need to get marketing approval from my client because this is going to be forward facing. But if marketing is monitoring that channel, marketing can then formalize those little nuggets of a story into an actual repeatable story that then they can translate back to the sales team, so that when sales is on there, they can say, I'm selling into CFOs. Well, Matt's a CFO and he had this, Matt, my client, is a CFO and he had this great experience, and this is what it did for Matt personally. This is what it did for his organization more broadly, and this is the financial win that it brought to his company. And when you can shape it like that, then that's a compelling story that sales can bring to their prospects. They can also bring it to customers during retention time of like, oh, our other customer that's in a similar industry of you, they're seeing this. Have you used our SaaS application to solve that problem for your company? And yeah, just breeding that culture of storytelling within the DNA of your organization, I think can do wonders for hitting revenue targets.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about these stories and the solutions that you just presented, what really shines through for me is your ability to understand multiple perspectives of the problem, because that positions you as a tremendous value in the organization that you're supporting. You're no longer just somebody who does pay-per-click or just somebody who does social media. You're able to really kind of say, look, there's a deeper issue here. It's software, it's communication, it's teamwork. And then to have these stories to be able to say, well, what about a Slack channel? It's such a no-duh answer after you present it, but maybe
Right.
Getting there is challenging. But I could certainly see the value there, right? You're able to tell stories and say things like, Matt, that CFO person, his specific issues were X, Y, Z. We were able to kind of provide value in these different ways. Those same value adds might not translate to other C-suite executives that you're selling into. And so kind of delineating those different client profiles is important. And a Slack channel is just one way of doing it that probably doesn't cost very much money. It's not like it's a huge, burden on the organization. We're not talking about a totally separate campaign. You're just talking about breaking down silos, which is really, really encouraging to hear.
Yeah, and it also brings your whole staff closer to the customer. Okay, we are doing the thing that we are doing. We were building the thing that we're building to solve actual customer challenges. And a lot of times, say you're an engineer at a SaaS company, you're never going to hear that information. So being able to share this publicly, that the whole company can kind of say, oh, great, I built that feature and it's being used in this way. And I never thought about it, but okay, this is going to inform how I'm going to build the next feature because this is how our customers are actually using it.
That sounds like it would also probably enhance engagement. It would enhance, increase culture. It would, hopefully improve the morale. All things that startups need to focus on.
Absolutely.
So again, I want to remind folks of, where we're at and who we're talking to. This is Rebecca Schuette. She is a startup veteran with roots in the agency space. She's the founder and chief marketer at Start to Scale, fractional CMO, all things venture capital and private equity focused on startups, specifically B2B tech and SaaS, enterprise SaaS type of companies. And so, Rebecca, I'm just really honored to be able to spend some time with you unpacking this case study and hearing a little bit about how you approach some of these issues. I think that there are a lot of CMOs out there in the fractional space specifically, and they have different backgrounds. And that doesn't mean that one's better than the other, but I think that it's important to really understand who you're hiring, the value they're going to bring, their holistic ability to be able to kind of bring some of these teams together. And you sound like you've kind of been there, done that in this space. So it's just been really encouraging to spend some time with you today.
Yeah, it's been great, Matt. And you're right. I mean, there are so many talented CMOs out there. And so it's important for founders to think, not that I have a marketing problem, because marketing is very broad, but I have a problem in this area of marketing, because then you should be able to find the CMO that will solve your problems, perfectly. One other thing about our case study that we haven't gotten to yet, Matt, was, we really talked about predictability on the revenue basis. And I
love that word, predictability, because that's like how I create my financial reports.
Absolutely.
When we talk to the board, right?
So many startups. It's something that so many startups struggle with. And I think from a predictability perspective, looking at it through a marketing lens, it does come down to the data. So you mentioned with this organization that really the only data that they had available for you was close rates. And this is not unique to this startup at all. There have been plenty of startups that have gone in where, maybe they don't even have a sales force. They're running this on Excel, or Airtable. I've had companies run their revenue on Airtable, which is okay to use to start, but you get to a certain point, you need to systematize your sales process and your marketing process so that you can figure out where am I failing and where are the best places for optimizations. So if I was walking into an organization and they already had, distinct sales stages, so common ones that you're going to see is maybe discovery, demo, proposal, and red lines, or something like that. Those are the stages. If I had that in existence, I would also want to see the marketing funnel, which might go first from something like lead to MQL, that's your marketing qualified lead, to SQL, your sales qualified lead, and then to SQO, your sales qualified opportunity. If I had that full funnel, I normally would like to go in and do a full analysis. So let's look at our pool of leads all the way down to our pool of closed won revenue and see what does that conversion rate look like at each level. Then normally a lot of times I'm coming in, an organization already has their revenue targets set for the next year. I want to do a backwards analysis. So starting at your revenue, looking backwards at if things were to stay the exact same and our conversion rate stayed the exact same, and I know what I need to get to from a revenue level, what would that full funnel look like? That tends to be an eye-opening exercise, because normally it would be way too expensive for any organization to architect that funnel. And so instead, you've got to say, all right, we need to do something different next year. We need to have a better conversion rate at this level of the funnel. We're going to dive in here. For this organization, they didn't have that level of sophistication. So the first step is to just start building some of those. Doesn't need to be fully baked, but you at least need to have what are the key steps and what are the key milestones in your sales process that then we can start architecting our instance of Salesforce to reflect that.
Beyond the financial performance of the business, which is generally where I like to play, it also tells you a lot about your sales team. It also tells you a lot about the sales cycle. It also tells you a lot about which steps maybe need refining, whether it's training. Maybe a salesperson's doing a great job, but they're just using the wrong words and they're not presenting the value, or maybe the marketing's getting you just don't know what you don't know until you have that visibility. And so that's really encouraging to hear that the predictability is out there. It is possible, and it is encouraged, because I think that's going to give everybody a lot more confidence in what they're doing.
Yeah. Like so many things in life, it's a numbers game. figure out what the numbers are, and now it's work backwards and come up with a plan that will hit those numbers.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, Rebecca, it's been great to spend some time with you today and unpacking this case study. I really appreciate your time. Just to kind of recap some of the solutions that you were so nice and eloquent in articulating. Basically, the first one was kind of understanding a little bit more about the organization, doing a deep dive. You called it research or diligence, choose your word, but basically really kind of getting to know what's going on in the organization, because that's going to tell you so much more about what's going on and maybe what you can look at in terms of fixing. But then one of the other solutions is this term called smarketing, which I'm going to use now for the rest of my life. Thank you. But basically these are marketing meetings, right, to kind of unify and get everybody on the same page, breaking down those silos, figuring out what milestones need to be hit. Hopefully it's more collaborative instead of combative. And then the third one was solving churn with customer storytelling, which is fantastic. I think about that Slack channel and how you described, using that and allowing other people to kind of contribute and collaborate there. That sounds like an extremely effective tool. And then the last one you mentioned was, maybe more obvious, but still needs to be stated, introducing some software that's going to kind of allow the different sides of the organization to communicate, give you that data, clearly defined a process in the sales funnel so that you can dive into it. And so for all of this, again, Rebecca, I really appreciate you kind of spending some time and unpacking this. It's been a really wonderful journey. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt. Have a good one.